Broncos win high-scoring affair over Browns. Stay in playoff position. The Denver Broncos continued their push for their first playoff berth since 2015, winning a wild 41-32 game over the Cleveland Browns on Monday night at Empower Field at Mile High in a matchup that produced 952 combined yards of offense. The Broncos were able to prevail despite giving up 497 passing yards to Browns quarterback Jameis Winston thanks to big plays, namely pick sixes by linebacker Nick Bonitto and nickel corner McMillian, along with a 93-yard touchdown pass from rookie quarterback Bo Nix to Marvin Mims Jr. That was barely enough to withstand a barrage by Winston and wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, who had 9 receptions for 235 yards and a 70-yard touchdown reception in his first game against his old team after being traded in the offseason. Here are the most important things to know from Monday night for both teams. Denver Broncos opening parenthesis 8-5 closing parenthesis. So much has gone right for the Broncos this season, as they've shown so much progress while still having so much promise. Monday night was their chance to show they were legitimate playoff contenders in the AFC. And what folks saw was a wild, back-and-forth game the Broncos somehow won, as they outlasted the Browns to maintain a 2-game cushion for the final wild card spot. The win moves the Broncos to 8-5 as they head into their bye week and keeps them in the no. 7th spot in the AFC. Despite many staggering moments along the way, the Broncos had their longest defensive touchdown of the season, 71 yards by Bonitto, and their longest offensive touchdown of the season, resulting in their first game with 2 touchdowns of at least 70 yards since 1997. Their defense surrendered a season high in yards before the third quarter was over, yet scored twice to get Denver the win. It was by far their wildest game of the season, which will cause plenty of pause when they get back from the bye, but it was the win they needed to be 3 games above 500 after 13 games for the first time since 2016, and they're still in line to break that 8-year playoff drought. Describe the game into words: great escape, a raucous home crowd, a beautiful evening, and a national audience to see their work. But all of it almost evaporated into the messiest of losses. The Broncos had a clunky first half of offense. The Broncos had 2 3-and-out drives in the first half, and an absolute meltdown defensively, which resulted in pinball numbers for Winston and Jeudy. The Broncos, wild night and all, are still in the thick of the playoff race, but they elevated the team's blood pressure to the limit to do it. Most surprising performance: the Broncos' defense, which has been oh so reliable this season, had the wildest of rides Monday night, especially in the first half. Winston was 18 of 31 passing for 245 yards and 2 touchdowns by halftime. Denver entered Monday with 6 games this season in which it surrendered fewer than 300 yards to an opposing offense, and 10 games this season giving up fewer than 245 yards passing. Bonitto returned a first-half interception, 71 yards for a touchdown, and McMillian returned the clincher for a 46-yard score with 1:48 to play. But the Broncos were on their heels for much of the night, and there is plenty to repair before they play again. Troubling trend: cornerback Riley Moss' absence in the defense was certainly noticed by the Browns, as Jeudy caught 9 passes for 235 yards, including a 70-yard touchdown. Moss sustained what coach Sean Payton called a sprained McLiddle in his right knee in Denver's Week 12 win over the Raiders and did not play. And while the Broncos' decision to not simply match up Pat Surtain 2 on Jeudy for the night can be debated, Winston repeatedly went after Moss replacement Levi Wallace in coverage, especially when the Broncos were in nickel. Moss' status will bear watching as the Broncos go into their bye. Next game, vs. Indianapolis Colts 4:25 p.m. ET. Sunday, December 15. Cleveland Browns 3-9. Winston produced the most prolific passing game of his 10-year career, and Jeudy had a career night against his former team. But a valiant effort from Cleveland came up short in Denver. A pair of Winston pick sixes, including one on a potential game-winning drive, cost the Browns in Monday night's high-scoring affair. The loss clinches the Browns' 22nd losing season since returning to Cleveland in 1999. It has been a disappointing season for Cleveland, which entered the season with aspirations of making a deep playoff run, but was beset by poor play from Deshaun Watson before his season-ending Achilles injury in Week 7. Winston has invigorated life into the Browns since taking over as the starter, but his high-variance play was on display again for a national television audience. QB breakdown. Winston continued his strong play since becoming the starter in Week 8 and made history in doing so. His 497 passing yards marked not only a career high, but set a Browns franchise record, exceeding the 489 yards Bernie Kosar threw against the New York Jets in 1986 in the divisional playoffs. This was also Winston's third career game with at least 450 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, tying Peyton Manning for the most in NFL history. But this 3 interceptions and 2 pick-sixes were backbreaking. His second pick-six was ultimately the difference in the defeat, but par for the course in his career. Promising trend. Jeudy recorded his 5th straight game with at least 70 yards, continuing the longest streak of his career. His 235 receiving yards marked a career high, and the most by a player in his first game against a former team in NFL history, according to Elias Sports Bureau. Silver lining. For the 4th time in 5 starts under Winston, the Browns were competitive against a playoff contending team. Cleveland came up short this time in a heartbreaking loss, but it was another game that can give the Browns decision-makers the thought that, despite a disappointing season, their roster might be in more need of a retool than an outright teardown. Daniel Oyefu side. Next game, at Pittsburgh Steelers 1 p.m. ET, Sunday.